Okay, we do have some people signed up to speak on other issues. If they would like to come on up and speak. Renee, would you like to come on up? Renee Ochoa, and then Michael Donata, and then Don Tiarino.
Judge Wolf, Commissioners, good morning. First of all, thank you for allowing me to be here to speak today, and thank you for the job that you do on behalf of the citizens of Bexar County. My name is Renee Ochoa. I'm here to speak on behalf of the men and women who put the Bexar County Sheriff's Office uniform on every day and protect the fine citizens of Bexar County. I'm a patrol sergeant assigned to B Shift East Patrol. I supervise B Shift patrol deputies who serve the citizens in the areas that Commissioners Wolf, Calvert, and Rodriguez were elected to represent. I've worked for the Sheriff's Office for 24 years. 24 years ago, Harlan Copeland was the Sheriff of Bexar County. I was 21 years old and fresh out of active duty from the U.S. Army. At that time, I think I was still a lean, mean fighting machine. Sheriff Ralph Lopez had just been elected in November of 1992. Sheriff Lopez brought sweeping changes to the Sheriff's Office that greatly increased morale and professionalism in our department. I can only think of a few deputies at that time that had college degrees. Since those days, I've seen many more patrol deputies that have a college degree than don't. I see more deputies that bring their own healthy meals prepared from home than eat tacos at the local Mexican restaurant. I see more patrol deputies eager to be sent to the next school to learn the newest trends in law enforcement than just content to do their time and go home. Many of our patrol deputies are also military veterans, having served honorably in our nation's military. Many being veterans of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. The valuable training our nation has provided these veterans is being put to use here at home, protecting the good citizens of Bexar County. I can tell you the reason I joined the Army was never for the money, but because I loved and believed in service to my country. Thankfully, our elected leaders who ran our country decided that it was the right thing to do to pay our military members who protect our country a fair market wage for their service. I can tell you that during the 2 years that I was deployed as a member of the Army Reserve to Afghanistan, I was paid quite a bit more than I was making working for the Bexar County Sheriff's Office. That being said, I do this job not for the money, but to serve my community. I'd also like to address the comments that were made on August the 30th by David Smith and Tina Dean Smith during the budget work session. Commissioner Calvert asked Tina why there was such a disparity in pay between SAPD, DPS, and BCSO. Tina responded by advising the court that it was what the market called for, and advised that while SAPD salaries were used in conducting a fair market study, they also use other entities such as NISD and ACCD police departments, since people who worked for the Sheriff's Office were leaving the jail to go work for these other agencies. David Smith incorrectly advised the commissioners that the requirements for employment for the San Antonio Police Department were much higher than with Bexar County Sheriff's Office. In fact, the only difference in requirements for SAPD and BCSO are that if you have a GED and apply with SAPD, you must either be prior military with an honorable discharge or have at least 15 hours of college. The reality is the requirements are exactly the same. The only real difference in the pool of qualified applicants who apply with SAPD and the Sheriff's Office is that SAPD has a much larger pool due to their competitive wages. In fact, the only agency that the Sheriff's Office properly should be compared to is the San Antonio Police Department. While we agree that these other agencies that the Budget Office has decided to place in the market study are law enforcement agencies. They do not respond to 911 calls for emergency service as SAPD or BCSO does. This is the same as saying that the constables do the same job that we do, when in fact the constables do a very important job in our community and our peace officers, but their primary responsibility is civil process serving and providing bailiff service for the justice of the peace. I don't know if anybody on the Commissioner's Court lives in unincorporated Bexar County, but if you do and you call 911 because you happen to be away from home and your wife called, said that somebody was breaking into the house and was hiding in the closet with the kids, the patrol deputies of the Bexar County Sheriff's Office will be the ones to respond to that call. Lastly, I believe that the county is wrong in determining that lieutenants and captains should be considered exempt or salaried employees. The determining factor for law enforcement and fire personnel should be that if a lieutenant or captain spends more than 80% of their time in the office performing administrative duties, it would qualify. I can tell you that lieutenants and captains with the Bexar County Sheriff's Office do not spend less than 20% of their time in the field. Between major crime scenes, engaging with community leaders, and managing personnel, our lieutenants and captains deserve the minimum standard created by the Department of Labor. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for your service to your
Thank
country
you, sir.
and to Bexar County.
Thank you very much.
Michael Donato.
Good morning, Judge. Good morning, Commissioners. I'd like to thank you guys for giving me a few minutes up here to speak my mind. I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Michael Donato, and I'm with the Sheriff's Office. Been with the Sheriff's Office for 10 years. I've been 3 years on patrol. Currently, I work under Sergeant Ochoa. Prior to the Sheriff's Office, I also served in the military. I served in the Marines for 4 years. After 4 years of training to fight, my unit was never sent to combat. I went to the administrative offices and I let them know that my 4-year term was about to be up, but I wasn't leaving until I had experienced combat. So I voluntarily extended my contract for another year with the promise to deploy to Iraq. I deployed to Iraq. I did a 7-month deployment, and I came back home, luckily unscathed. I'd like to discuss some of the issues on the wages with patrol deputies. I understand that there are certain individuals that don't believe that we are deserving of even fair market wages. One of the main arguments that I've heard so far is that we lack experience or that we lack education. Go to work with me for one day and I can introduce you to several deputies. One of my favorite is who's about to receive her master's in psychology. I need to introduce you to another Army veteran, combat medic, who on the job was able to save the life and limb of a woman after applying a tourniquet using the skills he had learned from the military. These are only two of the individuals that I work with. There are several out there who are also veterans, who are also very educated. Some might even say that the risks that we put ourselves in every day aren't deserving of the wages. I would love to introduce you to a good friend of mine, Deputy Galvan, who was involved in a crash while pursuing a subject. If you look at his patrol car, you'd be amazed that he's still alive. I'd like to also introduce you to another deputy who's one of our canine officers, Deputy Canales, who, while in the process of deploying his canine, was shot twice by a subject. I myself was involved in an officer-involved shooting last year, 2015. I was responding to a shooting in progress in which a father had called 911 after his son had shot him in the face. While clearing this home to find the subject, we found him hiding in his closet. As the closet door opened, he opened fire on me, hit me in the shoulder. The bullet hit my arm, traveled to my shoulder, fracturing it. This injury kept me out of work for 6 months. I'm sorry, it's been a year. Still get a little
Take your
shaky now.
time, Michael.
Shortly after my son was born, he was born a month after the shooting. I couldn't even hold him the way a father should hold his child. I'm not standing here before you because I want pity or anything like that. I'm just trying to drive home a point that at minimum, our patrol deputies who put their lives on the line every day deserve, at minimum, fair market wages. For anyone who disagrees that we are deserving of fair market wages, all I ask that you take a moment and please reconsider your position. Thank you for allowing me to come up here and speak my mind.
Well, thank you very much, Michael, and thank you for your devotion to your country as well as what you're doing for Bexar County. Don Tiarina.
Good morning, Judge, Commissioners, and the numerous followers online. My name is Don Tijerina. Since July 26, when I began speaking to the court, 18 officers across the nation have been killed in the line of duty. No other profession in this great nation has sacrificed as much as the men and women of law enforcement, their families, and friends. While the court had word sessions last week, I was in Washington, D.C., along with 40 other attendees from across the nation at a 21st Century Policing, Diversity, and Law Enforcement Forum. One item stressed by academia and criminal justice elites was that law enforcement is a profession, not a job. Compensation is part of a nationwide conversation related to officers, and Bexar County is well behind the curve on this issue. I brought along media containing the final report of the President's Task Force on 21st Century Policing for each of you to have, along with the handouts. This county and sheriff's office have some extraordinary employees with unique and valuable skill sets. At any given time, deputies are called upon to be social workers, paralegals, emergency management coordinators, mental health and crisis intervention workers, mediators, and when necessary, homeland warriors and enforcers of law and order. An exploding population approaching 1.9 million brings a multitude of problems and issues common to large metropolitan regions. I wish to make remarks to questions and statements that were made at the work session on August 30th, 2016. Regarding market compensation, agencies that serve comparable population bases have similar responsibilities, such as responding to 911 calls for service, and whose agencies have similar capabilities, which therefore entail similar skills and training, such as Austin PD and Travis County and the top 5 counties, which are utilized for most other Bexar County comparisons, are valid market comparisons. Utilizing school districts and small jurisdictions and mixing it up, as was stated by staff, are not valid comparisons and are not standard operating procedures used by the Budget Office in other market studies. Bottom line is that utilizing SAPD and DPS, who have similar responsibilities, similar agency capabilities, and training, serve large population bases, and work in our local job market, are fair comparisons for Bexar County deputy sheriffs. A significant point not to be ignored, it was stated by staff that they look at where we lose people, too, in relation to crafting their market comparison. Is that the criteria they use for elected officials or county executive staff? I have previously mentioned the importance of the high morale of police officers as recognized by the legislature of the state of Texas and many others. What message is county staff sending to deputies who have sacrificed much and have shown loyalty, dedication, and have invaluable experience, that their high morale is not a concern because they have not left? Staff also stated they made a proposal which reflected market value by rank, and it was rejected by the association. To be clear, I am not on the negotiation team, but as an observer of the public proceedings, the other side of that story, as I recall, was that the proposal also included a 0% increase for line deputies, 0%, which brings into question the market comparisons used by county staff and which was not surprisingly rejected by the association. Regarding compensation inversion, that's basically a little bit of what Renee spoke about with captains and lieutenants being classified as FLSA exempt. That situation occurs on a late call or a call out from home when a sergeant who is classified as FLSA non-exempt is also on scene. The effect is that the sergeant compensated at time and a half is earning more than a captain or lieutenant earning straight time or no time depending on county policy, while the captain and lieutenant incur greater responsibility and liability. Regarding the statement by staff that the requirements to be an SAPD officer are higher than ours, a clear message was sent by the implication. That statement set off a firestorm of disappointment and anger and had a negative impact on the morale of your homeland heroes. On the positive side, that statement provided insight to the whole community as to the perception and beliefs held by county staff. Facts. A deputy sheriff first completes a 5-week detention academy and then completes a 2-week detention DTO program, working in the detention center, gaining invaluable knowledge and experience of criminal behavior, mannerisms, language, and mindset, which cannot be gained just stepping out on the street. A deputy must have a peace officer license, which is another 728 hours of training, 1 year part-time, before being eligible to move into law enforcement. A deputy brings the experience gained working in the jail and then completes a 15-week patrol academy and then a 14-week PTO program before being released to patrol on their own. Regarding lieutenants and captains, to be eligible to test for BCSO lieutenant, a deputy must have an intermediate peace officer certificate, which is directly job-related training, and 45 hours of college. An SAPD candidate for lieutenant has 4 years after promotion to lieutenant to obtain 60 hours college credit, and there's no minimum peace officer certificate required. To be eligible to test for BCSO captain, a deputy must have an advanced peace officer certificate, which is a higher level, 60 hours of college credit. An SAPD candidate has 5 years after promotion to captain to obtain a bachelor's degree, and again, there's no specific peace officer certificate required. The documents I provided compare base salaries. Comparing total compensation would show deputies at an even larger discrepancy behind SAPD and DPS. Both SAPD and DPS have numerous other benefits, including paid health insurance for the employee. Any changes that are made by the court regarding health insurance coverage for county employees would also affect deputy sheriffs who have the same health insurance plans, coverage, co-pays, deductibles, and other costs as all other county employees. Although I understand the apprehension of appearing to negotiate in public, what is staff doing with their budget message? They have already stated they have set aside just under $5 million in fiscal 2017 for the first year of a contract for wages and benefits, including allowances and incentives, and a 5.5% pay increase. Staff is telling the association a 5.5% increase is on the table. That's what it's going to be, period. One question still to be asked of county staff. Are they allocating enough money to bring up base salaries of deputy sheriffs to comparable levels with SAPD and DPS? Yes. 5.5% compared to 1% for all other county employees seems significant. But being 20 to 25% behind SAPD and DPS in base salary, in context, 5.5% is not large. Step plans. Yes, SAPD and DPS have step plans. SAPD has a few early step raises, then at 5, 10, and 15 years for all ranks, and up to 25 years for patrolmen. DPS has step raises at 4 years, 8, 12, 16, and 20 years. Our step plan tops out at 9 years after 9 years in rank. A deputy does not receive any more step raises. In the higher ranks, such as lieutenant and especially captain, a 9-year captain is not common, as they would typically necessitate an over 30-year career. DPS salary is based on total years in service, not in years in rank, as is the case with DPS and the sheriff's office. The judge asked how long negotiations might continue. I can see light at the end of the tunnel. Consider a policy decision directing staff to offer a separate base salary catch-up provision to the CBA of 10%, while leaving other tentative agreements in place so that deputies of all ranks will earn similar base salaries to SAPD and DPS. A significant increase in money allocated to the process is necessary. We are quickly approaching a critical mass with salaries. With the approval of new SAPD contract, including a 17% salary increase, and new studies by the state of Texas recommending additional salary increases for DPS, we stand to fall even further behind than the 20 to 25% in base salary that we are today. Another $5 million, which would solve this pay inequity, in the 4th largest county in Texas and 17th largest in the nation, with a population approaching 1.9 million and a budget of $1.8 billion, is very feasible. There are areas where budget transfers, such as was done from capital projects, could be accomplished and budgeted for the next fiscal year. After funding for the initial catch-up, budgets will proceed normally with known costs in the future years. I have watched advocates for many different causes plead their cases before the court, mentioning values and advocating for priorities. I'm a child of this county. My whole life I've spent here. I've seen all the changes. I'm part of the community. I know your position is not an easy one. I ask again that you acknowledge that public safety is a basic tenet of government and that the high morale of deputy sheriffs is a priority for Bexar County. May God bless and always watch over our first responders. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Don. Thank you. We haven't had a briefing in executive session in quite a while on the negotiations. You might want to schedule something and get the court up to date. You know, one of the the problems that makes it a little bit more difficult is that the negotiators have to negotiate on behalf of the detention officers as well as officers, and the police department is focused on officers, so I know there's a give and take where we've offered some things and they've been turned down. But anyway, we need to get a briefing and see where we are. Okay, thank you.